Nathan Cole found the envelope on the third pew from the front. It was Sunday evening. The sanctuary was empty. The lights were dim. The last people had already gone home, leaving behind only the faint smell of coffee from the fellowship hall and the echo of a sermon that Nathan believed had been necessary. He had preached with conviction that morning. Strong words, sharp words, words about compromise, weakness, spiritual laziness, and people who walk away from God when obedience becomes uncomfortable. Several people had nodded. A few had looked down. Nathan noticed the empty seats too. Clara had not been there again. Marcus had not returned to the worship team. Peter and his family had stopped coming altogether, and Nathan had already formed his opinion. People were growing weak. The church needed truth, not excuses, not emotional softness, truth. But as he walked through the sanctuary, picking up old bulletins from the pews, he saw something unusual. A white envelope. No name, no stamp, no return address, just a single folded paper inside. Nathan opened it. There was only one sentence written in black ink. Before you judge the fallen, ask who pushed them while they were already bleeding. Nathan's hand tightened around the paper. For several seconds, he stood perfectly still. The sanctuary felt colder. The sentence did not feel like a note. It felt like an accusation. He looked toward the back doors, as if the person who left it might still be watching. But no one was there. Only the empty pews, the silent pulpit, and a sentence Nathan could not stop reading. Before you judge the fallen, ask who pushed them while they were already bleeding. By Monday morning, Nathan had decided he would find out who wrote it, but he did not yet understand that the mystery of that envelope would not expose the weakness of others. It would expose the part of himself he had spent years calling righteousness. Nathan Cole was respected in the church. He was 42 years old, disciplined, articulate, and deeply familiar with Scripture. He taught the adult Bible class on Wednesday nights. He helped organize men's meetings. He arrived early, stayed late, and always seemed prepared. If there was a theological debate, Nathan had a verse ready. If there was a difficult conversation, Nathan believed it should be handled directly. If someone drifted from church, Nathan usually had an explanation. Lack of commitment, spiritual immaturity, compromise. People do what they really want to do. He did not say those things with cruelty in his voice. That was what made him harder to confront. Nathan did not think of himself as harsh. He thought of himself as faithful. He believed the church had become too soft, too sentimental, too willing to explain sin instead of confronting it. And in some ways, Nathan was not entirely wrong. Truth mattered, holiness mattered, obedience mattered. But something in Nathan had become hard enough to turn truth into a weapon. Pastor David saw it. He had seen it for years. He knew Nathan loved Scripture. He knew Nathan loved order. He knew Nathan wanted the church to be pure, but he also knew that Nathan's words often left people feeling more exposed than restored. One afternoon, Pastor David invited him into his office. The room was simple: a wooden desk, an open Bible, a small lamp, a framed verse on the wall. Pastor David poured coffee and said gently, "Nathan, I want to talk about your message yesterday." Nathan sat upright. Was something unclear? "No," Pastor David said. It was clear. Nathan waited. The pastor folded his hands. Sometimes clarity can still lack compassion. Nathan's face stiffened. "I preached Scripture." "Yes," Pastor David replied. "But Scripture is not only a sword. In the hands of Christ, it also becomes medicine." Nathan looked away. He did not like the implication. "Pastor, people are leaving. Someone has to speak honestly." Pastor David nodded. "Yes, but honesty without love can become a burden heavier than the sin itself." Nathan said nothing. Inside, something resisted. He had heard this kind of concern before. Too hard, too direct, too intense. But Nathan believed people were simply uncomfortable with conviction. He did not yet see that some people were not running from truth. They were running from being crushed by people who claimed to represent it. Nathan could not stop thinking about the envelope. He kept it inside his Bible, folded between the pages of Matthew. At first, he suspected Marcus Reed. Marcus was 26, gifted, sensitive, and once one of the strongest voices on the worship team. But he had stepped down 3 months earlier after making a mistake during a Sunday service. He came in late, missed a cue, and seemed distracted. Afterward, Nathan had spoken to him in the hallway. The words had been firm. At least, that was how Nathan remembered them. "This is ministry, Marcus. If you cannot take it seriously, maybe you should step away until you grow up." Marcus had said very little. The following Sunday, he did not sing. 2 weeks later, he stopped coming to rehearsals. Then, he stopped coming to church. Nathan assumed Marcus had been offended by correction. But now, with the envelope in his Bible, he wondered. Not with guilt, with suspicion. So he went to see him. Marcus lived in a small apartment above a repair shop near the edge of town. When Nathan knocked, Marcus opened the door holding a grocery bag. He looked surprised. "Nathan, I wanted to talk." Marcus hesitated, then stepped aside. The apartment was modest, clean but full of signs of a life under pressure. A guitar leaned against the wall, untouched. A stack of grocery bags sat on the floor. Nathan noticed names written on them. Clara, James, Lily. "Are you delivering food?" Nathan asked. Marcus looked uncomfortable. "Sometimes." "To whom?" Marcus sighed. "To Clara's family." Nathan frowned. "Clara Benson?" Marcus nodded. "She hasn't been in church for weeks." "I know." Nathan's voice sharpened slightly. "And you've been seeing her?" "I've been helping her." Nathan studied him. Marcus looked tired, not rebellious. Tired. "What's going on with Clara?" Nathan asked. Marcus looked at him for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "Maybe you should ask her before deciding what's going on." The words irritated Nathan, but they also sounded too close to the sentence in the envelope. "Before you judge the fallen." Nathan left Marcus's apartment with more questions than answers, and for the first time, his suspicion began to turn toward discomfort. The next evening, Nathan drove to Clara Benson's house. He told himself he was going as a leader, to check on a missing member, to restore accountability, to understand the situation. But deep down, part of him expected to confirm what he already believed, that Clara had drifted, that she had become careless, that she needed correction. Her house was small and quiet, with a porch light flickering above the door. When Clara opened the door, Nathan barely recognized her. She looked exhausted. Her hair was pulled back loosely. Her eyes were red. There was a tiredness in her face that no Sunday smile had ever revealed. "Nathan," she said, surprised, "I wanted to see how you were doing." For a moment, Clara seemed unsure whether to let him in. Then a sound came from inside the house. A weak cough. Nathan looked past her. Clara stepped aside. In the living room, her husband James was lying on the couch beneath a blanket. He looked pale and fragile. Medicine bottles sat on the table. Unopened bills were stacked beside a Bible. Nathan's confidence faltered. "I didn't know James was sick." Clara gave a small, weary smile. Most people didn't ask. The words were not bitter. That made them hurt more. She explained that James had been battling a severe emotional and physical collapse after losing his job. Some days, he could barely get out of bed. Clara had been caring for him, working part-time, managing bills, and trying to keep their teenage daughter Lily from falling apart. "I wanted to come to church," Clara said. "But some mornings, I had to choose between being seen in a pew and staying home with a husband who was afraid to be alone." Nathan felt heat rise in his face. He thought of comments he had made in Bible class. People make time for what matters. Absence reveals priority. Clara lowered her eyes. "I heard some people were saying we had grown cold." Nathan said nothing. She looked up. "Maybe we did grow quiet, but we weren't cold, Nathan. We were surviving." That sentence entered him like a blade. Not because it was harsh, because it was true. On the kitchen counter, Nathan noticed a grocery bag. Marcus's handwriting was on a small label. Clara followed his gaze. "Marcus brings food twice a week," she said. "Sometimes he sits with James while I take Lily to counseling." Nathan turned slowly. Marcus? Clara nodded. He has been a blessing to us. Nathan thought of the young man he had called immature. And suddenly, the story in his head began to crack. The one he judged as weak had been quietly carrying burdens Nathan never saw. Nathan left Clara's house in silence. The rain had started again, soft and steady. He sat in his car for several minutes before turning the key. His mind went back to Marcus, to the grocery bags, to Clara's tired eyes, to James lying beneath the blanket, to Lily, whose name he remembered only because she used to sit near the front with a notebook during sermons. How many people had he categorized before understanding? How many absences had he interpreted as rebellion? How many quiet faces had he mistaken for spiritual laziness? The next person Nathan went to see was Evelyn Carter. Evelyn was 78, quiet, observant, and almost invisible to people who did not pay attention. She sat near the middle aisle every Sunday. She wrote handwritten cards to grieving families. She knew everyone's birthday. She never spoke loudly, but she seemed to know things. Nathan found her in her small garden the next afternoon, wearing gloves and trimming roses. When she saw him, she smiled gently. Nathan, I wondered when you would come. The words unsettled him. You did? Yes. He pulled the envelope from his Bible. Did you leave this? Evelyn looked at it. Her expression did not change. Not exactly. Nathan's pulse quickened. What does that mean? Evelyn removed her gloves slowly. It means the words were not mine. But I placed them where you would find them. Nathan stared at her. Who wrote them? Evelyn looked toward the church steeple in the distance. Someone who loved you enough to tell the truth after years of silence. Nathan felt something tighten inside him. Who? Evelyn's voice became softer. Aaron. Nathan did not move. The name entered the air, like a ghost. Aaron Cole, his younger brother. The brother Nathan had not spoken about in years. The brother he had quietly considered a tragedy, a warning, a shame. Aaron had fallen hard in his 20s. Bad choices, public disgrace, church whispers, family embarrassment. Nathan remembered the way people looked at them afterward. He remembered his mother crying. He remembered deciding silently that he would never be like Aaron. Disciplined, respected, unshakable. He had built his life in the opposite direction. When did you speak to Aaron? Nathan asked. Evelyn's eyes grew sad. Many times over the years. Nathan's voice hardened. He never reached out to me. Evelyn did not answer immediately. Then she said, he tried. Those two words emptied the garden of sound. Evelyn invited Nathan inside. Her living room smelled of tea, old books, and lavender. On the coffee table sat a small wooden box. Nathan already knew somehow that it was for him. Evelyn opened it and took out several letters. The envelopes were aged, but carefully preserved. His name was written on them. Nathan, his brother's handwriting. I kept these because Aaron asked me to, Evelyn said. He hoped one day you would be ready. Nathan's mouth was dry. Ready for what? For mercy. The word offended him. Or maybe it frightened him. Evelyn handed him the first letter. He did not want to open it, but he did. Aaron's words were simple. Nathan, I know you are ashamed of me. Some days, I am ashamed of myself. But I want you to know I have not stopped believing in God. I just do not know how to come back to a place where everyone remembers me only by the worst thing I did. Nathan swallowed. He opened another. I came to church last Sunday. I sat in the back. You were preaching. You did not see me. Nathan's heart began to pound. He remembered that sermon. Years ago. A message about people who disgrace the name of Christ. A message delivered with force. A message people praised afterward. He kept reading. You said some people fall because they love darkness more than truth. Maybe that is true for some. But when I heard it, I felt like there was no room left for someone like me to crawl back. I left before the final song. Nathan's hand trembled. He could see the sanctuary, the back row, his brother sitting there, listening, wounded, trying to come home. And Nathan, standing at the pulpit, had not seen a brother. He had seen a category, a warning, a sermon illustration. Evelyn's voice was gentle. Aaron was not innocent, Nathan. He knew that, but he was trying. Nathan looked at the letters through blurred eyes. He never told me. He was afraid you would only see his failure. The room became too small. Nathan stood abruptly, walked to the window, and gripped the frame. For years he had told himself Aaron rejected truth. But what if Aaron had tried to return and found Nathan holding the door like a guard instead of a brother? He thought about Marcus, Clara, Peter, Lily, the empty seats, the envelope, the sermons, the comments, the certainty. Then he thought of Jesus kneeling beside broken people Nathan would have avoided. For the first time, Nathan did not feel righteous. He felt exposed, not by an enemy, by truth. Evelyn gave Nathan one final letter. This one was written near the end, she said. Nathan turned toward her. The end? Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Aaron died last winter. Nathan closed his eyes. He had known Aaron was gone from his life, but he had not known he was gone from the world. The grief came strangely, not as one wave, but as many. The grief of a brother lost, the grief of chances missed, the grief of words spoken too harshly, the grief of realizing that being right had never healed anyone. Nathan opened the final letter. The handwriting was weaker than the others. Nathan, if this ever reaches you, I do not want your shame. I know how heavy shame can be. I do not write to accuse you. I write because I still remember when we were boys, and you held my hand crossing the street because I was afraid of cars. Somewhere along the way, I became something you were afraid to be near. Maybe I understand that. But I want you to know this. When I fell, I did not need someone to call my sin beautiful. I needed someone to remind me I was still reachable. I do not blame you for all my choices, but I pray that the mercy you could not give me will one day become the mercy you give someone else. Your brother, Aaron. Nathan lowered the letter. He sat down slowly. The room was quiet. Evelyn said nothing. She did not need to. Nathan had spent years thinking his greatest fear was weakness. But now he saw the deeper truth. He had been terrified of needing grace. Because if he needed grace, then he was not above the people who fell. He was one of them. That night, Nathan went back to the church alone. The sanctuary was dark, except for one light above the pulpit. He walked slowly down the aisle. Every empty seat looked different now, not like evidence of failure, like a question. Who sat here hurting? Who stopped coming because no one asked? Who heard truth without tenderness and decided there was no place left for them? Nathan stood at the pulpit. He placed Aaron's letter on it. Then he stepped down. For the first time in years, he did not want to stand above people. He knelt at the altar and whispered, Lord, I defended truth with hands that did not look like yours. His voice broke. I know your word, but I haven't carried your heart. He covered his face. Teach me mercy before I speak again. Nathan's story reveals a truth the church must never forget. Holiness without love can become pride disguised as zeal. Truth matters, sin matters, obedience matters. But the way truth is carried matters too. Galatians 6:1 says that if someone is caught in a transgression, those who are spiritual should restore that person in a spirit of gentleness. Not ignore, not excuse, not celebrate sin. Restore, and not with arrogance, with gentleness. That means the goal of correction is not humiliation. It is restoration. The goal is not to prove that we are stronger. It is to help a wounded soul find the way back to God. In John 8:7, when religious men brought a woman caught in sin, Jesus did not deny the seriousness of sin, but he also exposed the hypocrisy of those who were eager to throw stones. Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone. That moment does not teach that sin is meaningless. It teaches that mercy must humble the hand that wants to condemn. Matthew 7:3-5 asks, why someone sees the speck in another person's eye while ignoring the plank in their own. Nathan had seen specks everywhere. In Marcus, in Clara, in Aaron, in empty seats, in wounded people. But he had not seen the plank in himself. Religious pride is dangerous because it often uses true words with a wrong spirit. It can quote scripture while missing the heart of Christ. It can defend holiness while wounding the people holiness was meant to heal. But grace does not make us careless with sin. Grace makes us careful with people. Grace teaches us to tell the truth with tears, not stones. Grace teaches us that the fallen are not projects, scandals, or warnings. They are souls. And if Christ carried us when we were broken, we have no right to crush those he is trying to restore. The following Sunday, Nathan was scheduled to teach. Normally, he arrived with organized notes, marked passages, and a clear outline. But that morning, he walked into the church carrying only his Bible and Aaron's final letter. Pastor David saw him near the office door. "You all right?" Nathan looked at him. "No." Pastor David waited. Nathan's eyes filled. "But I think that is the most honest answer I have given in years." The pastor's face softened. Nathan took a deep breath. "I need to say something today, not as a teacher, as a man who has been wrong." Pastor David studied him, then nodded. When the class gathered, Nathan stood in front of people who were used to hearing him speak with certainty. Marcus was not there. Clara was not there. Several seats remained empty. Nathan looked at them, then at the people present. He opened his Bible to Galatians 6. His voice was quieter than usual. "For years, I thought spiritual strength meant never appearing weak. I thought defending truth meant speaking hard enough to make people feel the weight of sin." He paused. "But I forgot that Scripture says restoration should happen with gentleness." People shifted in their seats. Nathan continued, "I have judged absences I did not understand. I have labeled people weak when they were suffering. I have spoken truth in ways that made wounded people feel unreachable." His voice trembled. "And I need to ask forgiveness." The room became still. He did not mention names at first. He did not expose anyone. He simply confessed. After class, Nathan went to Marcus's apartment. Marcus opened the door cautiously. Nathan looked at him. "I came to apologize." Marcus said nothing. Nathan continued, "What I said to you after that service was not restoration. It was pride. You were already struggling, and I made you feel small." Marcus looked down. For a moment, the young man's face carried both pain and relief. "I loved worship," Marcus said softly. "But after that, every time I picked up my guitar, I heard your voice." Nathan closed his eyes briefly. "I am sorry." Marcus swallowed. "I'm not ready to come back." Nathan nodded. "I'm not here to pressure you." "Then why are you here?" Nathan's voice broke. "To say that you should never have had to carry my words as a wound." A long silence passed. Then Marcus stepped aside. "Do you want coffee?" It was not full reconciliation, but it was a door opening. Later that week, Nathan visited Clara again. This time, not to correct. To listen. He brought groceries. He sat with James. He asked Lily about school. He did not give speeches. He served. And slowly, something in Nathan began to change. Not into softness without truth, but into truth shaped like Christ. Nathan never forgot the envelope. He kept it inside his Bible near Galatians 6, not as a punishment, as a reminder. Before you judge the fallen, ask who pushed them while they were already bleeding. Months passed. Marcus eventually returned to the church, but not immediately to the stage. Nathan did not rush him. Clara and James began attending again when they could. Sometimes they sat in the back. Sometimes they slipped out early. No one called it weakness anymore. Evelyn continued writing cards, quietly mending places others did not see. Pastor David watched the church change in small ways. Not perfectly, but honestly. People began asking better questions. Not only, where have you been? But, how can we carry you? Not only, what did you do? But, how can we help you return to God? And Nathan changed too. He still believed in holiness, but now he understood that holiness without love does not look like Jesus. He still taught Scripture, but his voice no longer sounded like a hammer looking for nails. It sounded more like a man who knew he had been shown mercy. One Sunday, months later, Nathan stood before the church and preached from Luke 15. The prodigal son, the father running, the robe, the ring, the son who stayed home but did not understand grace. Nathan's voice grew quiet near the end. "For years, I thought the danger was only becoming the son who ran away," he said. but I did not realize a man can stay in the house and still miss the Father's heart. The church was silent. Nathan looked toward the back row. In his mind, he saw Aaron, not as a disgrace, not as a warning, as a brother, a wounded brother who had wanted to come home. Nathan's eyes filled. The truth does not become weaker when carried with mercy, he said. It becomes more like Christ. Maybe you know someone like Nathan. Maybe you have been Nathan. Correct in doctrine, but cold in spirit. Able to identify sin, but slow to carry the sinner. Or maybe you have been Aaron, afraid that your failure made you unreachable. Afraid that the people of God had no place for someone with your story. This story is not saying sin does not matter. It is saying people matter too. It is saying restoration is not compromise. It is saying gentleness is not weakness. It is saying the grace that rescued us must shape how we respond to those who fall. Because Jesus never needed stones to defend holiness. He carried truth with wounds in his hands. And if we belong to him, we must learn to carry truth the same way. With courage, with conviction, with tears, with mercy. Nathan thought he was protecting the church from weakness. But God used an envelope, a widow's pain, a wounded musician, an elderly woman, and a dead brother's letter to show him the truth. The fallen do not need people who make them feel unreachable. They need people who love them enough to tell the truth and humble enough to help carry them home. And maybe that is the sentence worth remembering. Grace does not deny the fall. Grace teaches us how to lift the fallen. If this story spoke to your heart, write the word grace in the comments. Let it be a simple reminder that the mercy God gave us should become the mercy we give to others. If this video helped you reflect, leave a like and subscribe for more Christian stories about faith, healing, forgiveness, and new beginnings. And remember, truth without love can wound, but truth carried with grace can bring the broken home.